Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, and I'll go second. So growing up throughout high school, I lived in a family home with my mom that used to be my great-grandparents' house. So my mom's grandparents' house. I feel like I've always had this strong ability to sense things around me. I also don't want to sound like super duper like hippy dippy right now, but it's true. And throughout the time that I lived in this house, I always felt something. Always. And there was one event that changed everything, and really confirmed to me that what I was feeling was true and that the paranormal is real. So going into that story, whenever you enter the house, so it's like the front door, and then you were greeted with a staircase. It was like a little bit to the left when you walked in, but it was basically right when you opened the door. Up those stairs, to the right was my bedroom. To the left was another bedroom that was more of an office for us. And then straight from the stairs, like going up straight ahead, was a smaller room that we turned into like a walk-in closet kind of deal. And there wasn't any bathroom upstairs. So the only bathroom in the house was downstairs. So if I had to wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I had to wake up, go down the stairs, go to the bathroom, go back up the stairs, go back to bed. There was one night where I had to pee so bad. So bad. And usually I would just hold it because, and I probably had UTIs for that reason, but I would hold it because I didn't want to go downstairs because I was scared to death. I could just feel everything. And so one night I woke up, opened up my bedroom door, went to turn to go down the steps. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Went to turn to go down the steps, and at the end of the steps, there was a woman standing there. She had her arms crossed like this. She had super long black hair. She was wearing like a drapery kind of frumpy outfit. And as soon as I turned the corner to go down, she turned her head like this. Her arms were still crossed. She turned her head, looked up at me, gave me like a smirk, and then turned back around to look out the window of the front door. I was frozen. I could cry thinking about it right now. I was frozen. Frozen in fear to where I felt like I couldn't scream, but also frozen in a sense of like my fight or flight kind of kicked in. So slammed my door, ran back into the bed under the covers, sobbing, calling my mom. I was telling her, there's somebody in this house. Somebody has broken in. You need to call the police. Call 911. There's somebody in this house. I could hear her getting up, turning on all the lights, saying, hello, hello, is anybody here? She comes upstairs. She's like, there's nobody here. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And from that day on, I slept in bed with my mom throughout high school because I was deathly afraid. Not that this being was scary looking, but the fact that, like, I saw her was insane. There was a ton of other stuff that happened in this house that just made me feel uncomfortable. There was stuff that my mom came out and told me, but not until after I moved out of the house, because why would she want to scare me even more? There was just so much. I have so many other stories, but that is my main one that really just like sealed the deal for me. It was crazy, but yeah.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
My dad's side of the family has experienced a lot of tragic deaths, one of which was my dad's brother Richard, who passed before I was even born. He passed in a car accident in the middle of the night, and sadly he and my dad were not on speaking terms at the time of his passing. They had just gotten into like a sibling spat, and about a week after his passing, my mom said she remembers laying in bed and getting a phone call. My dad rolled over, picked up, kind of mumbled a few words, and then hung up and laid back down. And my mom was like, who was that? Like, who called us in the middle of the night? And he said, oh, it was just Richard. He was calling to tell me that everything's okay. And I can remember hearing the story and just getting immediate goosebumps. It never left my mind. Fast forward 15 years later, I'm living on the other side of the country with my dad's sister for an internship, and my cousin and I are kind of having a catch up, telling family stories, and I bring up the story to him, and he just goes white in the face, and he says, you're kidding me. There's no way, right? That's not true. And I said, oh, absolutely. That's 100% true. So he's like, stay here. He runs down, he grabs my aunt, and my aunt's like, you're not going to believe this. but I have almost the exact same story. A week later, after Richard's passing, she hears commotion in the house, and she thinks someone's breaking in. It's in the middle of the night. So she tells my uncle to get up and kind of go sweep the house and see what's going on. As he's doing that, she said she feels a presence in the room, but she's not scared. It's calm, and she just feels a spirit walk over to her, lean down in bed, and give her a kiss on the cheek. And she said, I knew it was my brother. I just knew. And she said, I didn't kind of tell anyone at first because I didn't want to freak the family out. But eventually I told my mom, my Grammy, who had almost to a T the exact same experience. About a week after Richard's passing, she feels a presence in the room. He walks over, he leans over her in bed, he gives her a hug, he gives her a kiss, and she said it was the most warm, calming, sweet presence she's ever felt. And just to know that a week after, Richard visited 3 family members across the country just to let them know that he was okay.
We've had our first incidents of something moving on its own in the house, and there were 3 of us that saw it, and I'm feeling a little bit creeped out, like mainly because it moved, but also because of the timing of it. So last night I was sitting here on this couch, which is right next to the window. There's a tissue box there for a reason, I will tell you later. So we were sitting here, and I've told my kids that they can't jump on this couch because it's next to the window. The glass is particularly thin, I think, because they're older windows, and also there's like quite a big drop, if you can see. So there's a rule that they can't jump on this couch. So I was sitting here last night, my husband was sitting across from me, and my son was just standing to the side. And he had started jumping on it and then got off, and I started talking to him about the importance of not jumping on this couch because it's so dangerous. And I had a tissue box sitting up here. You can see that there's like a gap between there and the window. Anyhow, so we were sitting here, nobody's moving. I was saying to him, we don't jump on the couch, and I was listing out the reasons, like the glass is thin, there's a big drop, blah, blah, blah. At the end, as soon as I said, so that's why we don't jump on this couch, the tissue box moved by itself and flew from here and smacked into the window and then dropped down. And we all just went really quiet. And my husband, who's like more skeptical about these things, he was like, what the fuck was that? And we just kind of like looked at the tissue box, and then Eli, my son, started laughing. And I was like, what the hell was that? So it's the first time I've noticed anything move here on its own. And what like worries me a bit is like the timing of it. It was literally me saying, that's why we don't play near the window. And then it goes straight into the window. So I don't really know what to make of that. If it's like there's a ghost here that's trying to like reiterate my point, or if it's some kind of like threat. I don't know.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true. I'll go first.
So I have another ghost story. Well, it's not really a ghost story, but it's about some supernatural, spooky shit that happened to me, I guess, in my life. Everyone knows I'm no stranger to paranormal, spiritual things, ghosts, all of that. I tend to see a lot of it. So this story would be about my grandmother and about how I prayed this gift of mine away, or at least tried to. So as in my previous videos, you know, when my grandmother passed, we were really close. And when she passed, I still communicated with her. I still seen her. We still talked. And I thought it was normal until I kept expressing myself to everybody. And of course, it was either familiar spirits, that's not my grandmother, or, you know, all of the above. Everyone knows, you know, the rundown people give you. But anywho, it was made to me to not be normal. Like, you're not supposed to be seeing those things type deal. So up until those moments that I started expressing myself to other people. Now, when I was keeping it to myself, I was just living my best life. I was talking, we were playing, we were, you know, I was living my best life. Nothing was crazy about it to me. But anywho, the older I got and the more I was told that, hey, that's not supposed to happen, that's not this. The more I was just like, okay, so wait a minute. I'm the only one that's seeing this and nobody else is seeing this. So the older I got and the more I would say conform to society that I became, then the more scared I got of the things that I was seeing. So now I'm just freaking out like, oh my God. Now, mind you, I'm a horror girl, okay? I love scary movies. I love scary stories. I love all of that. It's very interesting to me. I believe that all of the majority of the things that I watch is true. I really believe it, and I'm just a horror girl. I'm a scare tactic, but I'm also scared of the dark. So, as I stated, as time went on, I was more scared. So, I am now, like, we're communicating. Me and my grandmother are communicating. So, now I'm telling her, hey, look. And I've always been a jokester. So, when I go to her, I'm like, hey, look. Unless you want me to be on the other side with you, you're going to have to stop coming to visit me. You're like, while I'm awake. I mean, if I'm asleep, I'm dreaming. In my head, I can kind of pass it off as a dream. I'm dreaming, but hey, me and you walking through the kitchen together, I don't think that should be happening from what I'm told, basically. So as more time went on, as I stated, the more scared I am. So I'm like, please don't come visit me. Don't come visit me while I'm awake. If you come see me in form, just let it be in a dream, and my anxiety will be better. My heart probably won't stop from being scared. Like, people die from being scared to death. Like, that's literally a thing, and I don't want to be in the number. So, I mean, of course we were close. So she did stop coming to see me, like in the physical form. I would see her in my dreams, but she actually stopped coming to me. But the crazy thing is, I still wanted some type of contact with her. I still wanted, even though she came to see me in my dreams, we talked, we communicated. So I had this thing where I started writing her letters. And I would put them in certain places, and I would tell her to move them. If she's there, just move them. Don't come see me, but just move my letter around. Let me know, that you're still here. And because now I don't have that, I wouldn't say physical, because of course she was not physical, but I didn't have that full apparition to go off of. I didn't see you with my eyes. And of course, all humans use their senses. So, hey, we got to see some shit to know it's there. So, that was the closest that I could get to seeing and knowing without seeing, So, I started writing her letters, and I would write her letters, and that's how we started communicating. She would move the letters. She would sometimes tell me where the letters were moved to. And some letters I never found. Like, some letters she just took and they were just gone forever. But that's how we started communicating, when I called myself praying this thing off of me. But it didn't go too far. Now, granted, I don't see a lot of full apparitions. After that, I didn't see a lot of full apparitions anymore. Like, I was fucking terrified, okay? I became very terrified while still watching scary movies and keeping up to date with all the spirits and ghosts and paranormal shit that's going on in the world. But I didn't want to see any apparitions, like, especially if I was somewhere alone. Like, I would be in there praying, oh my God, please don't let me look up and see somebody standing in the corner, because I just begin to feel like that, hey, if I see it, my heart is going to shut down and all my bodily organs are going to stop on me, is what I made my mind believe. Like, crazy, but anywho. But I guess that's another one of my good ghost stories. I have a lot more I would tell. Just let me know if you guys want to hear them. It's just little things that happen after I prayed that I didn't see her apparition anymore, and she didn't come to me in full apparition mode, like in full, body, I guess. I don't really know what you call it, but she still came around and did little things, turn the radio on, turn lights on and off, move things, and I loved it. Long as I didn't see her anymore, I guess. People made me believe that I should not be seeing these things. These are abnormal. These are, people just, made me afraid when, that's why you should just keep secrets. You just shouldn't tell people, you shouldn't just tell people everything, because I wouldn't be terrified right now if I didn't express what I was seeing at a young age. But anywho, that's neither here nor there. But that's my ghost story. If you guys want to hear more, just let me know. Toodles.
Okay, y'all, so I have a spooky story to tell, and hopefully by the end of the story, when I show you guys the proof, someone can explain it to me and think that I'm not crazy, because sometimes I feel crazy, and I've only told a handful of people this story, and it's kind of long, so bear with me. So in order to give you the full details of the story and how it happened and when it started to happen, I need to go back to the summer of 2019 when I was with my ex. So summer of 2019, I'm with my ex. We're out celebrating my birthday at this kind of active facility. You can climb up in the ceiling, you can throw axes, you can get inside hamster balls, go karting, all that stuff. Very active situation. At the time, my ex, he was an avid smoker, would drink energy drinks galore, and it was just a super unhealthy lifestyle. We would argue about it all the time, because I literally would tell him, if you keep this lifestyle up, you will have a heart attack. And lo and behold, while we're out celebrating my birthday, homeboy literally has a heart attack. Again, I'm going to try to be fast with the story, so I will leave some details out. So essentially, we're out celebrating my birthday. He has a heart attack. We know he's having a heart attack because my cousin that's with me at the time, she is literally she works in the medical field, and that's what she works with, okay? So she's like, he's definitely having a heart attack. We need to call 911. We call 911. Paramedics show up. They're like, we're pretty sure he's having a heart attack, but they seem fine. He seems fine. Everybody seems fine. They gave him some medication. They're like, he's chilling. So we're all chilling. We go to the hospital. I'm low-key, I'm an anxious person, so I'm literally anxious, and I'm up right in with the paramedics. They're like, everything's fine. I'm like, is it though? Because I don't feel like it's fine. I'm honestly panicking. Just a weird situation to be in. We get to the hospital. They put us in the room. The doctors are chill. Everybody seems chill. My ex is literally joking with me at the time. I remember he's literally joking about something. Is looking at me. I start kind of laughing because I'm oh haha, everything's fine. Everybody seems fine. Everything was not fine. Literally, my ex, I just see him after he's joking about something. His eyes roll in the back of his head. Literally, all of a sudden you hear the machines going off like you do in Grey's Anatomy or any of these medical shows where someone's coding, and then they start doing code blue over the speakers, and literally they're whisking me out of the room, trying to get me out of the room, and I'm what's going on? This lady's everything's fine, but then they bring me a priest into the room with me to read last rites or whatever, and I'm what? I don't even know what's happening right now. So while this all's happening, the doctor comes in the room with some nurses, and they're listen, this is what happened. We almost couldn't revive him. It literally took us a long time. We hit him with paddles after paddle. He was not coming up. We had to do some I don't even know. It was medical jargon that I don't even understand, but I remember a beta blocker. That's all I remember. But they did something, and it brought him back, and they're literally we have to take him to surgery right now because it's not looking the greatest. So I'm over here okay. Long story short, he makes it through surgery. Everything's fine. But, when he wakes up, we do talk about, how he did die and, what he saw when he died. And he, is explaining to me, what he saw. He literally said that he was, felt like he was being pulled super strongly from his body, like from the earth into space, like saw stars, all that stuff. He saw like 3 people that he recognized, and then one person like that was like kind of like a shadow figure behind these 3 people that he saw. But like right before he could make out who it was, who this shadow figure was, he was pulled back into his body, and then that's whenever he woke up. So he never saw the shadow figure. And I would like to say that's the end of the story, but it's not, because literally right after this heart attack is like when all the weird spooky stuff started happening, and I literally cannot explain it. So he comes back from the hospital, and I literally start noticing whenever he's like back at the house that like there's little weird things that I'm seeing. And like honestly, like I don't know if he experienced them like too, and he just like refused to like believe it or whatever, because he definitely is like a skeptic. But like I literally saw, like I would see like blue orbs all the time. I'm pretty sure I have a video of that. If I can find it, I'll post it. But I would see like blue orbs all the time. I would literally hear voices in the house, and it wasn't just me, it was the dogs too. There was one time we were asleep in bed, and at the time when we were together, we had 3 German Shepherds. They would all sleep in the bed with us. I vividly remember this day because it has spooked me to my core. So one day we're asleep in the bed with the 3 German Shepherds. It was probably like 3 in the morning, maybe 4 in the morning. Cannot remember. I literally hear first a man's voice, like clear as day in the room with me. I'm literally like, what? And I also hear a woman's voice. So right after I hear the woman's voice, because the woman's voice was way louder than the male's voice, I literally like just like rose up like a zombie from the bed. Like, what was that? I'm thinking like, could this be a dream? I'm not sure if this is a dream or not. Like, what did I just hear? I noticed that when I'm like awake, the dogs also are like alert. Like before I even like woke up, like they heard this too. So I'm like, what the heck? As I'm awake, sitting up in bed being like, I'm just crazy. I literally was dreaming. Like the dogs probably just woke up because I woke up. I hear a woman's voice, clear as day, so loud in the bedroom with us, like in the house is what it sounded like saying something about like, it's okay, sweetie, or like, I love you, sweetie. I can't remember. All I remember is like the sweetie part, and it sounded like a mother like nurturing her child. I hear this woman's voice. As I'm awake, the dogs hear it. They start barking. Like, we all hear it at the same time. I'm like, what the heck? I literally am, like, trying to wake him up. He does not want to wake up. He, like, never wants to wake up. So I'm literally like, what the hell did I just hear? I'm thinking my mom, like, walked through the house because she knew our door code. And I'm like, what the hell is she doing here? I, like, rise out of bed. I'm like, Mom, like, because I'm like, what are you doing here? I, like, go into the living room, go to the front door. No one is there. No one is there in the house. I also realized what time it is, and I'm like, what the heck? No one outside, nothing. So, like, I still to this day do not know what that voice was, but just to go back to the story, like my ex, when he was young, his mother did pass away, and, like, a part of me believes that maybe it was his mother coming to see him, coming to visit him, and check on him. I'm not 100% sure, but still to this day, it, like, haunts me to my core because it was the creepiest thing. But, again, we're still not done with the story. So during this time, I'm just like hearing voices. I'm seeing orbs. I'm like having weird dreams. Also, like, I just want to point out the fact that I was alone a lot because my ex had a job where he would work nights. So I was like alone a lot of the time at the house, and I would hear stuff. And then even when I would try to tell him, like, he just wouldn't believe me because he's just like doesn't believe in that stuff. But he's not the one experiencing it. Like, I'm seeing it. I'm hearing it. It's very like spooky to me. Very unsettling. The story's not over though yet. Okay, so one day I'm at work, and like during this time I had been like talking to some of my coworkers and telling them what I've been experiencing because like it literally was freaking me out. Like, it was literally freaking me out. I was like having issues. So I'm at work one day. I'm literally feeling this like burning sensation in my ankle. Like a burning sensation. I'm just kind of like, what is that? And it like literally was burning. It was itching. I literally was like itching my like ankle. I'm like, what is that? Like, but I literally couldn't like itch it that much because I'm just like, I'm like working on clients. Like, I'm a hairstylist. I'm working with color. So I had gloves on, but like my ankle was like literally irritating me. So finally I'm like looking at my coworker. I'm like, oh my God, like my ankle is like burning so bad. Like, what the heck? I'm like pulling up my pant leg to like look at it. And I just want to I just want to say a part of the story that like at the time I was literally wearing capri like pants. So like they were not on my ankle, and I was wearing like a slide type of platform shoe. So like nothing was on my ankle at the time. Okay. So I go to like pull up my like pants because I'm like, what is going on? Like my ankle is burning. And what I saw still shocks me to my core today because it literally creeps me out. And it literally creeps out my coworker. I'm going to show you guys. Hold on. Y'all, this was literally on my ankle. Like this right here. Like, you could not tell me that does not, like, look like a D. And that does not look like a J. Like, also, like, what is that up there? Like, my coworker, like, whenever we, like, saw this, he literally was, like, creeped out. I was creeped out. I was about to cry because I was like, what the heck is that? Like, I'd never, and it was, like, burning. And I remember my coworker vividly goes, like, did someone curse you? Like, did, like, someone, like, put a hex on you? And I'm not kidding. Like, that, like, scared me to my core. And I'm like, I don't even, like, know how this even, like, would have been imprinted on my ankle. Like, there's no way at all that this could have just, like, ended up on my ankle. I remember I was so creeped out by this that I literally talked to my dad about it. And my dad, like, he's Arab, and he literally was like, that looks like Hebrew. So he, like, made me send it to my uncle. He agreed that this looks like Hebrew. I don't know what this is. So if anybody knows what this is, like, please explain it to me. Because, like, this just creeps me out. Like, what is it?
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So in 2020, I moved into this house and I instantly started noticing things. Me and my family did. A couple of the things were small, things like hearing the faucet turn on when there was no one home, smelling flowery perfume, cigarette smoke, things like that. Well, a couple months after we moved in, I had two experiences happen within about a month of each other. The first experience, I was in my room and I came downstairs. The way that the downstairs is set up, you have your hallway and then the living room, the dining room, and then the kitchen. So when you come down the stairs, you can see the dining room from the stairs. So when I walked down, I saw my sister sitting at the table. Didn't think much of it, so I kept on walking, and I got into the kitchen and looked again, and she wasn't there. I was like, that's odd. I'm pretty sure I just saw her. So I walk into the kitchen, and I look off to the right into the living room, and my sister is asleep on the couch, and it was just me and her there. And thinking back to that, I definitely saw a person sitting at the table, and they had kind of like a gray face, and it almost looked like a little boy. So that was scary. And then about a month later, I was completely home alone. And I was just sitting in the kitchen. This is in the kitchen and living room area again. I was sitting at the island in the kitchen, just scrolling on my phone. And I heard someone tap on the window behind me. And I turned around, kind of looked at it, and I was like, I'm just hearing things, Kept on scrolling on my phone, and then I heard it again. And I was like, okay, my sister's pranking me, like she's up to something. Whatever. So I ignored it, and I kept scrolling on my phone, and then maybe a couple minutes later, I heard more tapping on the window. So this time I actually turned around and looked, and I saw someone back away from the window. And I was like, okay, haha, you're so funny, just blew it off again. And I'm sitting there scrolling on my phone, and then it hits me a couple minutes later. I am completely home alone. My sister is in a completely different town at the moment. There is no one else there with me. So I was so freaked out that I called the police, and they came and did like a search around the area, went through the backyard, made sure everything was okay. And there was no one around. We were all good. Well, I still had trouble sleeping that night because I could have swore someone was knocking on the window and messing with me. And there's like no trees around that could have been knocking on the window, so it definitely was someone knocking on the window. Well, the next day comes and it's daylight out, so I go into the backyard to see if I can see anything, like any footsteps, any traces of anyone being in the backyard. And I walk up to the window where I heard the knocking, and I realized that where I saw the person's face was in like the top corner of the window, and that was about 7 to 8 feet high. No one is 7 to 8 feet tall, and it wasn't someone jumping up to that height because I saw them straight move back. And, the only explanation I have for that is a ghost. Because there's no way it was a person. No way. But, that's my stories.
I think it's finally time that I told the story of how I saw a ghost entity, supernatural being, in broad daylight in an old Victorian lunatic asylum. I haven't told it properly on this app. I made a video about it like maybe last year or the year before, but I only had a limited amount of time. So strap yourselves in, brace yourselves, because this story genuinely changed my perspective on life. From the time I was 17 to 21, I worked in what once was an old Victorian lunatic asylum. So it was built in the 1800s and it was still functioning as a hospital. So one half of the hospital was a psychiatric hospital and one half of the hospital was a care home for adults with intellectual disabilities. As you can imagine, the stories about how patients were treated from the time the asylum was opened until kind of uncomfortably recent history, the stories were brutal and barbaric and hideous, and it just doesn't even bear thinking about. That's not to say that all of the nurses and doctors and attendants and care staff that worked in this facility in those days were evil people or did terrible things, but understanding of mental health and intellectual disability was very, very limited. People did what they could, and often what they could was not very good. When I started working there when I was 17 years old, there was already rumours about the place being haunted, and people didn't really see it as a massive deal. But prior to me starting work there, and I mean only a couple of years prior, they had called in a priest to do, I guess, what you'd call an exorcism mass on the 3rd floor of the building. The building was 3 stories, and at night time, the top story, the 3rd floor, was empty and locked. It was not used for any purpose at night time. But night staff had started to complain about working nights because they would hear furniture being dragged around on the top floor. They would hear footsteps running around. Scary stuff when you know the top floor is meant to be empty and locked. And for a lot of these night staff, they would go up and check because they would worry that, you know, there was a patient still up there or somebody had broken in, but there was never anybody up there that would account for the furniture being dragged around and the footsteps. Another member of staff told me that she had laid the tables for breakfast on the 3rd floor the night before, and when she went up in the morning, all of the cups and saucers, etc., had all been placed on the floor next to the tables. A nurse told me that there was one night him and another nurse were working the night shift and they heard the usual footsteps, furniture being dragged, etc. So they went upstairs to check, and all of the light switches on this floor were controlled from a singular control panel. And this nurse was standing beside the control panel and he watched as the switches flicked off one by one and turned off all the lights upstairs. At that point, apparently both nurses were like, fuck this. We're just pretending this isn't happening. And they left, locked it up, went downstairs. So as a result, a priest was brought in to say some sort of exorcism mass to try and appease whatever spirit was up there. At this point in my life, I wasn't that much of a believer, and I still don't consider myself to be that much of a believer. So when I started and I heard all these stories, I was just like, okay, like, you know, creepy at nighttime, etc., but generally absolutely fine. For like 4 years of working there, I didn't experience anything. I would have certain corridors and rooms that would make me feel uncomfortable, but other than that, it was pretty fine. Until this one morning. So it was a bank holiday Monday. It had snowed and I had driven to work, and the reason I remember that detail is because I was only a new driver and I was a bit freaked about driving to work in the snow, but I made it there safe and sound. And it was 10 o'clock in the morning and I was on my breakfast break. Now, I wasn't meant to be on my break at this point, but I had snuck out for a cigarette with a girl who was working with me, and I was leaning against the wall smoking my cigarette, and I looked up at the building opposite me, and the building was empty because it was a bank holiday Monday. This building was now used for admin, and I looked up, and in the middle window on the 3rd floor, there was a girl looking straight back at me. And her image is just engraved into my brain. Like, I can still see her as clear as day. This wasn't a fleeting glance. This wasn't like a couple of seconds. She was in the top story looking down at me, looking up at her. She had kind of shoulder length, maybe longer, black hair. She was really pale skinned. She was wearing some sort of white dress. And this is the bit that makes me feel like weirdly emotional. Like, it makes me want to cry when I think about this, because instead of eyes, she just had like black hollows, black voids instead of having eyes. But I somehow still knew that she was looking at me and that I was looking at her. And now in that moment, I had that weird, like, sinking stomach, swooping feeling, but I didn't quite understand why. My first thought was, oh shit, I'm after being caught smoking and I'm going to get in trouble for being on my break when I shouldn't be. And then this girl, she sort of, like, so she's standing here, she sort of drifted away from the window. And I didn't quite grasp what was happening until the girl that was with me turned and ran, and she was trying to get her key in the door to get back in the building. And I was like, what are you running for? What's wrong? And she said, did you not see that girl in the window? Did you not see that girl in the window? And I was like, well, yes, I did see that girl in the window. Now, at that point, I was trying to be super rational about the whole thing. So I went to the nurse in charge and I told her what had happened. And I ended up going to the person in charge of security that day. And that happened to be one of the senior psychiatric nurses that was working in the psychiatric part of the hospital. So I went to him and I said, this is what I've seen in the child and family unit. The building's meant to be locked, but I definitely saw this girl. This other woman who was with me saw this girl too. Can you please go and check? He was actually really dismissive about the whole thing. But I imagine to just to keep me happy, he went to check, and all of the building was code locked. So that means that if anybody was in the building, the alarm would have been going off because nobody was scheduled to be in the building for that day. So if anybody had gone into that building on that day, they would have tripped the alarm and everyone would have known about it. So at that point, I put it down to a weird thing that happened. It was very strange, really sort of unsettled me, and I found it really difficult to get that image of her out of my head. She would pop into my head at night time when I was going to sleep, and I'd be like, no, not here, not in my house. Okay, you stay where you are. About a year later, we were having a conversation on the ward about, various spooky things that have happened to us over the years, general spooky chit chat. And somebody said to me, oh, Emma, tell your story about what happened to you and the other girl when you were on your break and you saw that girl in the window. And I told the story, and a nurse that was working rolled up his sleeves and his arm was all completely goosebumps. All the hairs were standing on end. And I was like, geez, it wasn't that much of a scary story. And he looked at me, dead serious, and he said, I see her all the time. So at that point, my stomach is dropping out of my arse. Do you know what I mean? I am like, what do you mean? He said that when he was working the night shift, he would be in the nurse's station, which is just a glass cubed office in the ward. And he said that when he was working the night shift, there was one night he was sitting in the office and he saw the blur of a woman with a white nightdress and dark hair run really fast past the nurse's station. He obviously thought it was one of the patients. He got up and checked, couldn't find anybody, checked all the patients. They were all in their beds. And he was like, weird. And then it kept happening, and it happened multiple times when he was on the night shift. And every time he would see this dark-haired woman with a long white gown run past the nurse's station, he would go and check. There would never be anybody there. The patients would all be in their beds. That incident really changed my perspective on things, because while I wouldn't call myself a full-blown believer, and I still don't call myself that, I saw something that day. I saw a girl with dark hair and a white dress looking at me. It wasn't a fleeting moment. We were aware of each other for a period of time. I saw her, as did the person that was with me, and as did the nurse, as was revealed to me a year later. Look, I don't know if it was paranormal. I don't know what it was that I saw, but I saw it. I saw something, and it changed my perspective on ideas around the paranormal completely. What a long story. It's also the reason why I started my podcast, Real Life Ghost Stories, because I was so fascinated by other people's experiences of the paranormal. That's why the podcast was born. So go and listen to it if you want to. I tell this particular story in the very first episode, which came out in 2019. But yeah, that's my ghost story. Crazy.